Hello, welcome to the top 10 most popular commanders of March. Today we have a bit of sad news but also good news because we are not doing the Ur Dragon in this list ever again. We did a deck tag on it and so we move on with others. But we are still starting with the most popular commander outside of that commander, Edgar Markov. Edgar Markov has been popular for a long time but has come back because he had a lot of new art pieces that really fit well with the character and with the people that are fans of him. So let's look at that this time. Every time a card returns, there's a different thing we do with it, and today Edgar Markov has returned for the third time, so we are doing his art. First art is, I think, what definitely got people into Edgar Markov, aside from the fact, of course, that the family Markov is such a popular family, at least within the groups of vampire fans. So here we see him in his full armor, screaming shoulder pads, people giving him stuff, blood, gauntlets, his cape, his sword, and you can see how much of a badass he really is. I think this art by Volkan Baga really made us think about the leader of an ancient family that sort of has returned because we hadn't heard from him, well, alive or dead or whatever he is. And now he is back, and that's exactly how he is standing. He is there, he is back. He looks at us to see if we will challenge him because he doesn't expect you to do it, but he is ready for you if you would. Next art piece by Martina Fakova, I think also shows us still strength, but this is a little bit more of a sleek design, let's say. We have his friends around him, more like gossipy and slaying. And Edgar Markov still has his sword, but he definitely doesn't really seem in control anymore because people are talking behind his back and they are not kneeling at all. People are in the back, but they more so look like they are trying to catch a glimpse of weakness so that they can take over his position. So here we have already a little bit of a change. Then this one by Betty Young. Well, people are offering their glasses, hoisting them up in salute still to Edgar Markov, or at least to what he brings. I don't really think people are respecting him still, and he looks a little bit weak, to be honest. I feel like they were working towards the Crimson Vow set where he would be weaker, even to the point of Olivia being his master over himself making any choices. So yeah, we're definitely seeing him indulge and getting weaker by the moment. And then we got another art. Actually, the previous one was what made him more popular, aside from the fact that there were some cards that made vampires as a whole stronger. Well, mostly that maybe. But well, this one is here as well. I'm wondering, what do you think? Let me know in the comments about cards like this that might not be the most readable. Do you think they are fun enough so that people should play with them, or do you think they are unusable because you have to, well, learn the cards in a different way and it's a little bit confusing? Let me know. Well, next up is Hashaton, the Scarab's Fist, from the new Ether Drift set, and he is from one of the commander decks, the popular one. The other one really wasn't, because I think energy has been a little bit overdone, but Hashaton is back, and we will look at some good cards with the Scarab God Lover. Well, of course, let's first look at the abilities actually again. So he is blue, white and black colored, for a small commander that says, whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 3 mana. If you do, create a tap token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. So you do like zombies, but most of all you like discarding creature cards and getting them back for 3 mana, which can actually be really cheap. And perhaps there are other ways to copy your tokens that will be really good. So cards like Renewed Solidarity, 3 mana, to have you create a token that's a copy of each token that entered the battlefield of your chosen type. So in this case you would choose zombies. And then you will get another copy of the tokens that you created with Hashaton. They will also get an extra power, but mostly you want to double them. Then I think other things you really want to work with are ways to cheaply discard creatures, like Tortured Existence, an enchantment that lets you discard a creature for just 1 mana to return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand so you can cycle them over and over. Other cards, Scarab God, of course also recursion, but also brings back things like they are a zombie, and also works with zombies because at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life and you scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. So multiple ways in which the Scarab God actually works with his follower, and of course it's thematic. And then the last piece of thing that you need in this type of deck is things that are really big and powerful to use. One thing that I really like about Hashaton is that his ability doesn't just work on your turn, it can be used at instant speed on your opponent's turns as well. So if you have a way to discard Consecrated Sphinx on your opponent's turns, then for 3 mana you can play it just before your opponent is going to draw a card, and then draw 2 cards while they just draw 1. So there are multiple cards that become even better when you can play them at flash speed, and I think that's another strength of this Scarab's Fist. Next up, looking at the art again, number 3, just now, Krenko moving up 1 place because of the Ur Dragon not being here. Krenko's art should be relatively simple. Karl Kupinski made the first one. Here we have Krenko standing in front of an alley where 2 goblins are looking to either stab him in the back or follow him into stabbing someone else in the back. He seems to have a lot of blood around his mouth. His crown is made probably by himself just to make sure that other goblins know that he is the leader. And I think this perfectly shows a goblin that feels like he is on his own. He is not in any of the Ravnican guilds and he is just doing what he likes. Other art, Nanahira, shows Krenko in a more buff state. Well, actually he was a little bit buff before, but now he has trained a little at least. And I think in this anime style we really get to see how Krenko is still an evil person. We can feel how this is all about the evil guys in anime that are perhaps weak, yes, but also, well, you want to attack them. And then this new one that propelled Krenko back into the top 10, from Lee Setia 1, which really shows Krenko and his goblin-esque character. So we see him breaking open a door, his followers are aplenty, and they are doing goblin things. You can see that. Next up is Atraxa Praetor's Voice. Praetor's Voice is in Thorf and also gained 4 places. So Atraxa is going in back firmly into the top 10, and if we get her 10 times, then we will stop doing Atraxa in the top 10, but we will do a deck on her. That will be soon. But for now, let's look at something in the real world, or its mythology, where Atraxa really seems to be the same. And I have chosen for Atraxa the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And it's a bit of a weird one, because there seems to be a lot of red in there, but Atraxa really is also a sign of a sort of divine being that is coming to bring the world's end. That's what Atraxa's role should have been in the Phyrexian ideology, which also mirrors the figures, because she was spreading Phyrexia's version of perfection, which ultimately means domination, war, decay, and transformation. Of course, Atraxa, which is I think the weird thing about this that doesn't really fit, has 4 colors, and you would want each of the horsemen to be one of the 4 colors. So the first one, the white one, is the horseman of conquest, which is also sometimes about purity, or at least the mirror of it, of purity, and often seen as a sort of powerful religious figure at least, or a fake one. And Atraxa is definitely either one. Then the blue one, the second one, the horseman of war, should have been red, I feel. So that's a bit weird, maybe that doesn't fit. But also is there to dominate, to see war as the conquest of knowledge and technology, and also being a cold strategic mastermind. Then black, I think, really fits well, the horseman of pestilence. Of course, that is the shielded version of Phyrexia. And then the horseman of death, which you would say would also be shielded, but I think could really well be green because of the dying and that not being the end, but going into a rebirth state of life. I think this really fits. So let me know what you think about this. Temmet is the other guy from the new commander deck from Either Drift, and let's look at his abilities. Temmet in 5th has stayed there over these months, and his most interesting part is, well, he's just a typo commander, where he says whenever you attack, draw a card and discard a card, and the best part, whenever you draw a card, zombies you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Now you will need ways to get your zombies in, because this has always been the weakness of zombies, but in blue, on top of white and black in zombie decks, there are ways to give your zombies evasion, so you will need that. Of course, the first Amonkhet Esper zombie commander was Farina, the Lich Queen. She says whenever you attack with 1 or more zombies, draw that many cards and discard that many cards, and you gain that much life, but mostly the drawing of that many cards, which will give all of your zombies +1/+1 for every card drawn, will be really strong, and perhaps your opponents will have to block every zombie or die. Also, exile 2 cards to create a 2/2. Other things that work really well are things that are zombies, of course, work with zombies, but especially I think Undead Augur, which is a zombie, works with zombies, and also draws you a card whenever a zombie dies. So that means you are doing everything you want. Another mythology one, 6th place for Pantlaza, stayed on the same spot, and I think we will have to link Pantlaza to any deity that works with the sun basically, but I've chosen Inti, the bringer of prosperity, who in Incan mythology is the supreme sun deity, providing light, warmth and prosperity to the world. And I think Pantlaza is doing the same, perhaps a bit more warly, but they do align in this chosen vessel of a solar blessing that will sustain and strengthen those around them. And Pantlaza definitely does that, strengthening and sustaining. I think the white and green identity of Pantlaza is the sun being a source of life, and then the red part is of course the more fighty part of it. He's also the chosen ruler's connection to the sun, so many say that Inca rulers were said to be the children of Inti, carrying his divine will, and Pantlaza as a cleric dinosaur represents a figure of religious authority in this way as well, because he is helping his other dinosaurs getting in there. We have another type of segment, so many different segments when we have the same cards in the top 10 month after month. Kaalia of the Vast is here to return for a character in Dungeons & Dragons, and I think Kaalia shouldn't be a playable character but should be a sort of end boss that you can optionally fight. I think she should be really overpowered because she is so in the lore and pretty much so as a commander, and so, well, having to fight her means that you will need a bunch of really strong playable characters as well. So could be done, but I think it should be optional. And then she could be, she could have some interesting abilities around summoning perhaps random angels, demons or dragons, or perhaps it depends on how she feels. If you've really triggered her, she might be creating demons. If she might be on your better side, she might be creating angels. Or if she is perhaps somewhere in the middle, she will be creating dragons. But I think creating them randomly is the most interesting thing you could do. I would give her a combat rating of around 23 because you really shouldn't be fighting her. And she will be chaotic neutral, so that any character will be able to, well, maybe converse with her. But oftentimes when you start to talk with her, she definitely will not allow you to be around because she is such a primal force of being. I think the most interesting thing that she will do is calling forth an angel, demon or dragon. That will be around combat rating 15, but she shouldn't be able to do this too often because then, well, it will still be too hard perhaps. The creature will be fiercely loyal but can be reasoned with if the player will, or the players will, use diplomacy. She will have her greatsword, of course, which should deal some radiant or necrotic damage, whichever I think she chooses. And if the target is a cleric or paladin, they make a DC 20 wisdom save or will be stunned next turn after she attacks. Then I think she also will need some ability around unleashing storms of divine infernal magic. So she will have way too many ways to defeat your players. So definitely make sure that they know they have to be prepared. Another character we will make is Lathril, which I think could be a playable character, but I think would be more interesting as an ally or a quest giver or something of that kind. Lathril is a warrior queen, a chosen leader of the elven people, and she embodies, I think, elven resilience. So that is of course in the green and black of her character. She definitely knows her way with her sword, her ancient twin-bladed, imbued with the spirit of every fallen elven warrior sword, so should be really powerful in direct combat, and I think will be more powerful even if she gets angry. Really interesting parts about this, I think mostly because she is the leader, that she will have at least a nice group of elves often moving with her. She won't really be moving on her own anymore. She did before, but won't be doing that anymore. And she has some great protective ability with her snake cloak. So that should be really strong as well. Other than that, I think she's mostly melee, but also has some spellcasting abilities, mostly to enhance herself and other elven allies to get into battle. If you want these character sheets or something, then let me know, I will share them with you. Next one, Mendicant Core, the Guide Light from Either Drift, the main set. Not the only one actually. Is here, and we will look at some good cards with that. So Mendicant Core gets stronger with every artifact you control. I think most interesting, can help you copy artifacts you play. You do need to have max speed and you do need to pay an extra mana to copy them, but that copy ability is of course really strong. Things he is good with, being able to play a bunch of artifacts, so making them cheaper helps. Another way to work with this or to build your deck around is, I think, improvise and other ways to make your artifacts cheaper, of course. So your artifacts can help cast spells, preferably other artifacts, and I think I forget the ability. But any affinity thing will work. So Kappa exceptionally works because whenever it or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1 counter on it, and it can't be blocked. So this can definitely be a finisher as well. And of course you need things that can't be blocked because you need to get that max speed up by dealing damage a few times over the duration of a few turns. So that's why I think Thopters work really well as well. Thopter's spy network, again, especially because you will get multiple Thopters that can get in, and you will need only one. But if you're just using flying, then you will need, well, multiple. Talking about that, Cyberdrive Awakener will give your other artifact creatures flying. So your commander, for example, and that will work very well with his power being so very high from having 20 artifacts on the battlefield. And Cyberdrive Awakener, when it enters the battlefield until end of turn, each non-creature artifact, that would be overpowered, maybe, you control becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 4/4. So all of your treasures will become 4/4s that can fly, and it should be a finisher on his own, actually. Captain Howler is in the last place for the top 10, so still very popular, of course, and he is just all about discarding cards and giving your creatures 2 extra power whenever you discard 1 or more cards. So you will want to do it multiple times, not discarding a bunch of them at once, even though wheels will still be very strong in this deck. Also, whenever the creature deals combat damage to a player this turn, you draw a card. So things we want to do are having ways to discard cards. So Key to the City can tap, discard a card, and then up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn. So you discard a card, give a creature 2 extra power, and then make it unblockable, so that you will do at least 2 damage and draw a card. So you will get your discarded card back that way, of course. And whenever Key to the City becomes untapped, you may draw an extra card. But in this case, actually, we don't really care about that too much. Inti, let's just say Inti, 2 mana for a small knight. Whenever you attack, you may discard a card. And of course, you will want to attack a bunch of times with this aggressive deck, and you will want to discard a bunch of cards. So we like both things. We will be doing the first, and we will love when the second happens. When you do, you put a +1 counter on target attacking creature. So we will get at least 1 more power in there, and it gains trample. So with all of that 2 power goodness, you will at least get some evasion, because trample is still evasion. And whenever you discard 1 or more cards, you exile the top card of your library. You may play it until your next end step. So you will get value onto value onto value until discarding a card is like gaining 2 cards. Fear of Missing Out also discards and draws, but also has Delirium. I think Delirium cards work really well, or other things that want specific things in your graveyard will work well. Any recursion that you could find in these colors will be great additions. But I think Fear of Missing Out is especially good, because after this phase, there will be an additional combat phase if you trigger that Delirium cost. The Locust God, 6 mana, big guy, but whenever you draw a card, create a 1/1, and those 1/1s can then of course draw you more cards because of Captain Howler's ability. They will also get flying and haste, so if you can storm off with this, then you do you. And also has an ability to draw then discard, so of course works in any way with this. So that was it for this top 10. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I wish you a nice day.